The Shakespearean story, Othello, began in the bright city of Venice. Othello, the Moor of Venice, and commander of the Venetian army, had just won the hand of Desdemona, a lovely Venetian noblewoman, in marriage. The fair Desdemona had been the desire of many Venetian men, including a man named Rodrigo. Rodrigo had been pursuing Desdemona for quite a while, only to hear from his soldier friend, Iago, that Desdemona had secretly married the Venetian general, Othello. And just around that same time, Othello appointed one of his soldiers, Michael Cassio, as lieutenant. Iago was hoping he would be the one to be picked for the lieutenant position, but Iago was a talkative. He was mischievous, a troublemaker, and a tattletale. Perhaps this was why his commander overlooked him for the position, and instead picked Cassio, a more responsible soldier. However, Iago became bitter for being left only at the low rank of ensign, and thus began to plot the downfall of Othello. As part of his plan, Iago urged Rodrigo to continue his pursuit of Desdemona, although she was already married. Knowing that Desdemona's father, Senator Brabantio, would not approve of having Othello as a son-in-law, Iago made Rodrigo to tell Brabantio the news of Desdemona's marriage to Othello, but as directed by Iago, Rodrigo made the story sound as if Othello had bewitched his daughter and eloped with her. Then, Iago went behind Rodrigo's back and told Othello that Rodrigo had betrayed the news of his marriage to Brabantio. Infuriated at the news of his daughter's elopement, Brabantio angrily summoned the militia to find Desdemona and arrest Othello. At that moment, some officers arrived to summon Brabantio to an urgent meeting of the Senate. There was an imminent threat of a Turkish invasion fleet on Cyprus. Brabantio goes to the council, only to interrupt the meeting. He lamented that Othello must have bewitched his daughter. However, Othello, who had just been put in command of the forces to repel the Turks, was present to tell his own side of the story. Othello explained to the council how his stories of military prowess had helped him earn Desdemona's love. Desdemona confirmed this when she was called upon, thereby defending her marriage. Unfortunately for Desdemona, her father disowned her for defending Othello and her marriage. After the meeting had ended, Othello was called away to Cyprus to defend it from the Turks, while Desdemona was left to arrive later in the care of Lieutenant Cassio, and with Emilia, Iago's wife. In Cyprus, to the favor of Othello and his troops, a terrible storm at the sea broke apart the Turkish fleet, and the invasion was stopped. Montano, the governor of Cyprus, arrived at the scene with his soldiers and proclaimed a night of celebration at the defeat of the Turks. Prior to the onset of that night, Rodrigo had confessed doubts about his potential to woo Desdemona to Iago, but Iago assured him that there was hope, and lied to him that Desdemona was gradually falling in love with him. Having filled Rodrigo's head with lies and false hope, Iago urged Rodrigo to challenge Cassio to a duel that night. When the night came and the celebration started, Iago somehow gets Cassio drunk, and Rodrigo, following Iago's earlier advice, incites the drunk Cassio's anger. A fight ensued, and Montano, the governor, was stabbed during his attempt to restrain Cassio. Othello was angered by the fight, more so by the governor's injury. Uttering his disappointment in Cassio, Othello strips him of his recently conferred officer status of lieutenant. And the mischievous Iago was overjoyed by this. The next day, Iago convinced Cassio to ask Desdemona for help in regaining his post. Iago's plan was to sow a seed of jealousy in Othello's mind and make him doubt Desdemona's faithfulness. When the unsuspecting Cassio asked for help, Desdemona innocently agreed. Meanwhile, Iago had gone behind to suggest to Othello that his wife harbored feelings for Cassio. Othello actually considered Iago's insinuations and began to watch his wife. Perhaps no one ever thought that the publicly jovial and friendly Iago was capable of any evil, and he used this to his advantage and played them all. Thus, when Desdemona spoke to Othello and her noble cousin, Lodovico, about Cassio's case, Othello's suspicions were confirmed, and he slapped her out of jealousy. Iago, with the help of his wife, Emilia, somehow got hold of Desdemona's handkerchief, which Othello had mistakenly dropped. It was a specially made handkerchief that Othello had given Desdemona on their honeymoon. Iago then put the embroidered handkerchief where Cassio would find it. Cassio found it, and loving the embroidery, gave it to his mistress, Bianca, to make a copy of it. He had no idea it belonged to Desdemona. Iago continued to inflame Othello's jealousy. He brought Othello in to listen on from behind the door as he and Cassio discussed about Cassio's mistress, Bianca, and the embroidered handkerchief. Othello misinterpreted the conversation, believing that Cassio was talking of Desdemona. Convinced of her infidelity, Othello resolved to kill Desdemona himself, and then ordered Iago to kill Cassio. But Iago knew that a face-off with Cassio could reveal his devious intentions, and so he thought of another way to eliminate Cassio, while still making Cassio believe he was on his side. Meanwhile, Rodrigo had begun to suspect Iago was not the friend he seemed, and confronted him for failing to deliver his promises regarding Desdemona. Iago talked him into believing that if he killed Cassio, then he would win Desdemona. And Rodrigo foolishly agreed to go along with it. Iago's plan was to get Rodrigo to kill Cassio for him, and then he would kill Rodrigo to ensure his evil plots remained a secret. That night, Rodrigo and Cassio fought, and both were injured badly. Thinking that Cassio had been killed, Iago arrived at the scene, only to see Cassio wounded, but still alive. Iago then feigned a quarrel with Rodrigo for wounding Cassio, and before the confused Rodrigo had the chance to react, Iago killed him. Bianca came in, and seeing Cassio wounded, alerted soldiers who rushed to the scene and carried Cassio away for treatment. On the other side, however, Desdemona was greatly distressed at her husband's change of attitude towards her, and sang to relieve the distress she felt at losing the trust of her husband. Poor Desdemona, her death was at hand. That night, as she slept, Othello came to her bedroom to murder her as punishment for her supposed adultery. Desdemona awoke and cried out to her husband of her innocence. She pleaded with Othello not to kill her, but he would not listen. Othello went ahead and suffocated her to death with a pillow. Just then, Emilia came in to alert Othello of Rodrigo's death and Cassio's injury. On seeing Desdemona dead by Othello's hand, Emilia screamed out loud. It was then that Emilia betrayed all of Iago's plots, thereby proving Desdemona's innocence. Reacting to his wife uncovering his plots, Iago stabs Emilia to death. Othello, who had been dumbfounded throughout the shocking revelations, charged at Iago and stabs him just before Iago is arrested and sent for trials. The Venetian nobles then revealed that Brabantio, Desdemona's father, was dead, and thus could not be grieved by his daughter's tragic death. But Othello was overcome with grief. He had been foolish, cruel, and merciless. Telling those present to remember him how he is, Othello went away and killed himself. Cassio was finally made the commander of the Cyprus army. With this, the story ends.